Good Thursday morning. Hello, hello.
Good morning.
Let's get right into it. Who's got something for us? Let's get some positivity going, a win, a gratitude share. What do we got? Frankie.
Yeah, I got one today.
All right.
I have a client, well, not a client yet, a lead who I was working with a few months ago, and he was a whole, I don't got good credit, but I need a house and blah blah blah. Then I got the Roby. I reached back out to him, and it was the same thing. Now he's like, oh, housing market sucks and blah. He's going on and on. So I'm like, whatever, dude. I'm not gonna fight you, force you. I'm here if you need help. I'm here to help people. Yeah. Well, I woke up today that he filled out Dan's app this morning, and probably going to get him on as a client. I'm going to reach out to him again today, see if he wants to meet up, make a plan, and get him into a house.
Love it. I think, I was actually just kind of talking through this yesterday. I spent some time reviewing our deals that fell apart. So every month we have deals that fall apart, and that's just part of the game. Last month, I think we had 19 transactions fall apart, and as you move up the rungs as an agent, less and less of your deals should fall apart, but inevitably deals are going to fall apart. There's just some deals, there's nothing you can do. We do about 100-ish transactions a month. 19 just seems high to me, and I know a lot of you guys are new to the business and, difficult market. And I'm just looking at the different things, and 5 of them were mortgage commitment. And so it's one of those things where I can't stress enough how important it is to get your people to use a preferred like Semper as a resource, as a check valve for you guys, so that you are not running around with a buyer that can't get the job done, right? And there's a couple of times where this thing comes up, and the first time where lending comes up really heavy is when they say, hey, we're not going to buy for 6 months. We'll get our pre-approval then. Right now, we just kind of want to get our feet wet, see what's out there. As an agent who's driving the bus, who's taking control, who's at the top of their game, you've got to stop them in their tracks at that point and say, hey, look, I know we're not buying for 6 months, but I think it's in your best interest to just go talk to a lender now, because we just don't know what we're going to find. We could find a couple of things that just haven't gotten cleared off your credit report. We could find out that the best program that you qualify for right now isn't a great program. We can get you a loan, but not at the best rate and the best closing costs and all of that stuff. If you can do X, Y, and Z over the next 6 months, I can get you into this better program that gets you a better rate. That's right. And so we've really got to have this conversation, and you guys have got to be forceful with this. This can't be, hey, I've already got a pre-approval, and you guys are like, thank God I got a pre-approved buyer, right? The conversation needs to be, hey, that's great that you're pre-approved. You're one step ahead of most of my buyers that I work with, but we got to get a second opinion on this. What I know from being in this business is that everybody's financial situation is different, and every lending institution has different opportunities. So the opportunity that you had on that piece of paper might be the best opportunity for you, but it might not. And you're about to purchase probably your biggest asset. We should really at least get a second opinion. And the worst that's going to happen is we're going to find out that the deal that you've got on the table right now, that pre-approval, is a smoking deal, right? But the best case scenario is we're going to find out we could have got you into a better loan product with a better rate and lower closing costs, or whatever the case might be. Or we're going to find out that there's something that your current pre-approval, the lender didn't pull the right docs, and he didn't do all the background checks. So I want you guys to feel comfortable having these conversations, because or else, 5 of our agents wasted their time running a buyer around, writing offers, getting it under agreement, potentially, I didn't look at the details of it, going through the inspections to find out that the lender couldn't do the deal. I mean, we just don't have that kind of time. We do enough running around where people just decide not to buy, or, you know, they're going to, who knows what other reasons they're going to back out for. But for mortgage, man, I hate to see that stuff. Jeff and Linda, I saw your hand up.
Okay, so I have two completely separate things that I'd like to say to address this issue. And this is critical for those of us who are down in Florida. In Florida, we are always presumed to be a transactional agent unless the buyer or seller, it goes deeper if we become a specialized agent where we represent either the buyer or the seller. It's very unique and different than it was in Illinois and the way it is where you all are. But this is really important. If we, as transactional brokers, are bringing buyers to homes where we know that the buyer has not been pre-approved, we are acting detrimentally to the transaction. Our responsibility is to a smooth transaction. So we're taking a buyer out to show them homes, but we are bound to be representing the transaction, and it is not in the best interest of the transaction to bring someone who we do not know if they are qualified to make a purchase to a seller's home. And we could get into big trouble for that. It's hard to wrap your brain around that concept, but that's what being a transaction broker is all about. It is our responsibility to represent the transaction. So we have limited fiduciary responsibility to both sides of the transaction, but this is a material issue that would negatively impact a transaction. Furthermore, if we are running these buyers all over because they want to see a home, how incredibly disrespectful is that to a seller? I don't know about anybody else, but getting your house showplace ready for a showing is a big deal. And if you have children, if you have pets, it's a really big deal just to have the home looking good for a showing. And if we're just frivolously taking people out just because they feel like looking at stuff, that's absolutely so disrespectful, even if you're not in a transactional scenario as we are in Florida, but most assuredly if we're in a transactional relationship as we are in Florida. So I think we're always looking at it from the perspective of the buyer. And yes, of course, we want to help our buyers find homes. But if they're not committing to this basic and fundamental principle of home purchasing, the answer should be absolutely not, because for all of the reasons that I've just stated.
Yeah.
And I'm sure there are more.
Yeah, this is great stuff that when we're trying to really polish up your buyer presentations, these are some of the conversations that you're having. Hey, I think it's in your best interest to do this. Here's a couple of reasons why. Hey, if you were on the seller side, do you understand what they're going through? Like, we got to just have our ducks in a row. So great share, Linda. KB, I saw your hand up. Did we lose you?
No, I didn't know if I wanted to stay on the topic or if you had something else, just because
We can stay here. I mean, I have a topic, but we can stay here.
So yesterday I had an interesting experience that I kind of wanted to share because I feel like a lot of people could learn from it. I received an email from a client that was asking me to terminate a exclusive buyer's agency representation with one of our agents, for a bunch of different reasons that honestly most of them I didn't agree with, but it really kind of came down to after speaking to this buyer that she was just very scared. She's in a really shitty situation with a lot of kids, getting evicted in a hurry, and can't understand really what she's supposed to do, and didn't feel like she was getting the guidance that she needed to make educated decisions. So she had tried to get pre-approved with, I think it was 4 different lenders, all kind of like no-name lenders. One well-known lender wasn't able. They just kept saying, no, you need to do more work. You need more work history. You need this, you need that. Your credit, it's not that you have bad credit, you just don't have established credit. But no one was actually like giving her guidance as to what she really needed to do. this was an angry person, right? So when I got on the phone with her, she was not happy. She had already chosen a different agent at a different brokerage to work with. She found her own lender, which is her bank that she goes to, who said, "Oh, yep, no problem. I can get you into a house." And she just kind of lost faith in what we were doing. So rather than just kind of letting it go, I put myself in her shoes and I just started asking questions, right? I asked questions about what her situation is. Where does she want to be? What is her job history? And then after I was able to get all of her information, I said to her, I said, well, number one, do you mind if I ask who the agent is? And she told me, and I said, and number two, who is the loan officer? The loan officer at the bank that she's working with, I actually know really well, and he's a fantastic guy, right? But the reality is, banks are very limited to the different products that they have, and he basically pulled her credit and really kind of did nothing else. So he pre-qualified her, he did not pre-approve her, right? And once we started having the conversation a little bit more, I said, hey, you're telling me that the agent that you were working with, you felt like wasn't guiding you enough through the transaction. Do you realize that the agent that you're planning on working with got her license 3 months ago and she's never done a transaction? So I'm just concerned for you, right? Like, I want to make sure that you're in the hands of people that are going to be able to give you what you're looking for, because now I understand what you need. And she listened to me quite a bit. I convinced her to have a conversation with Eric, a trusted lender, right, who has I can have communications with, right? So I said, do me a favor. I'm going to call these guys. I want to have a conversation with both of them. And I want to see, what might be the best fit for you and what are going to be the best options, because a bank is going to have very limited amounts of programs that are available to them. Whereas a lender is like a professional lender is going to have more products. So the best way I can come across to explain this to a client, and I've always used this, and I recommend you guys using this when you're talking about a bank versus a mortgage lender, is when you go to a bank, it's like going to your general practitioner. And when you go to a mortgage lender, it's like going to a specialist, right? So the way that I explain that is, hey, Mr. Buyer, if you were to break your arm, would you go to your general practitioner or would you want to see a specialist? And they say, I would want to see a specialist, right? Because if you go to your general practitioner, you're going to go to your general practitioner for everything. You have a runny nose, you sprained your ankle, you might need x-rays, whatever it is, right? But if you have something that you already know is wrong, you're going to go to the specialist. Same thing with a bank. If you go to a bank, they're going to do car loans, they're going to do mortgage loans, they're going to do personal loans, they're going to do banking. If you go to a mortgage specialist, they specialize in mortgages. That's what they know the best, and they're going to have the best options for you in your situation, and they're going to be able to bring what they have to the table that's going to work best for you. So that's what I explained to her, and she agreed to have a conversation with Semper. I got off the phone with her, and I called Eric's cell phone, which is an amazing thing that we can do now, right? I called him. I explained the entire situation front to back. I had her send me the credit report that was pulled on the 22nd. I sent it over to him. He looked it over. He got on the phone with her, talked to her about her job history, about the money that she has that's not in her account, all sorts of stuff. And she filled out an application last night, and he called me back and he said, I can 100% make this work, 100% financing. So this is, to me, it's all about the conversation. Don't be afraid to talk to people about what their options are, because I think that a lot of times agents are like, oh, I don't want to step on their toes, or I don't want to offend them because they already did their job. Yes, they did, and that's amazing. Clap for them, right? Like, pat them on the back, like Steve said. You're already steps ahead of most buyers. They don't typically do that, right? My concern is that that's not the best product for you. And if you guys come to any situation from a place of contribution and from a place of you wanting to make sure that you are putting them in the best position to win, it's very rare that you're going to get pushback on that. So I just wanted to, let you guys know that I was able to save a buyer for our brokerage. I was able to help a single mom get approved for a mortgage, and she's hopefully going to be able to start house hunting within the next week or two.
Awesome job. And, that takes a lot of time, right? And that's this business, is really going deep, pulling back the layers of the onion to figure out, how am I going to help this person? How am I going to be that real estate resource, right? In this case, it's not setting up listing alerts and trying to find them a home, right? In this case, it's really trying to understand the whole scenario, particularly the financing, and can we do this? And when you have that preferred, that 100% this is going to be a deal or it's not. It's just, when I was in production, 9 out of 10 would go to my lender because it was a deeper conversation like that. And then I knew it's just like a relief of, okay, I can take time away from my friends, my family, nights and weekends, because this person's ready to go. Because my lender told me I'm good, right? That should just be a weight off of your shoulders that I know it's good versus there's a pre-approval hanging out there. That's great, but I've never even heard of this lender. I have no idea. I've never done a deal with them. And I have no idea if they're in the best position, if they pulled all the right docs. How many deals have they done? How long have they been in the mortgage industry? Maybe.
Sorry, one more little nugget that I had pulled out of that conversation yesterday was one of the biggest reasons she was so angry was that the agent wasn't willing to continue to show her homes because she could not get pre-approved. And she was very upset by that. She's like, I need a house. I need to be looking. I need to have an idea. I think that conversation has to be a conversation. It can't just be oh, we're not pre-approved. All right, we're going to stop looking at houses. And it was very easy conversation for me to have with her when I said, hey, listen, Miss Buyer, the reality is, like, you're not ready right now. If I take you to see any home and you fall in love with a house and I bring you in that house and you can't write an offer on that house until October, that house is going to be gone. You're going to lose that and you're going to be disappointed. And then you wasted your day going out looking at houses with me, and I wasted my day going out looking at houses with you that we're not ready yet. Like, I don't want to get you all excited and fall in love with a property that we can't purchase. Let's wait until we're ready. And then when we walk through a door, you're going to know that we can make things happen. And she's like, that makes total sense. So make sure that's a conversation that you guys are having. Don't sidestep these conversations.
Any scenarios that you guys are coming across regarding the lending, like that you have a question with, or does anybody else have a share on this of how a conversation went that might be beneficial to others? Or if you're on the call and you haven't been comfortable, you just stop when they say, I got a pre-approval already. You're not pushing. Like, does this make sense? Is there any other, here's the devil's advocate, or what else? Jen.
Yeah, I've had it come up a couple times where it's a really nice house, $800,000, and actually just this week. And the girl called and said she wanted to see it and she had all these ideas for it. And I said, that's great. Are you pre-approved? And she's like, oh, no, not yet. And I said, well, we can't just go see the house right now because it actually was an agent owned as well. And I simply told her, they're requesting to see pre-approvals before they let people into their home. They really want to make sure when you're looking at this house, you're a qualified buyer at this time. So really your first step, if this is what you want, is to, speak with a lender. She didn't really like it at first, but we had a longer conversation and now she understands it. She just didn't understand the process and had all these wonderful ideas for this gorgeous house and catering. But you do have to get in deep with what they're really looking for and explain the process because they just sometimes don't understand it.
Now, Jen, had you met that buyer in person?
No, not yet.
Okay.
But we're discussing it, but I couldn't just show up to the house without a pre-approval. And so I had to have a long conversation.
That was literally something in the MLS or that the listing agent had told you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So when it's hard and concrete, it's such a great out for you guys to not have to go and show that property. Of, hey, look, the listing agent's not going to let us show. I got to have a pre-approval, right? And here's why it's in your best interest. And let's just hop on a Google Meet and let's talk through this. If we don't have that in writing, right? So a lot of times you're not going to see that. Unfortunately, I think the best course of action is to go show that house with a non-pre-approved buyer to get face-to-face. Because here's what I've seen happen is if you say, oh, well, they're not going to allow showings without a pre-approval. Oh, that's weird because I just called another agent and they said we could do it, right? Or they're going to go and call another agent and that agent's going to schedule the showing and they're going to show it to them. And then they're going to have that conversation about, hey, I know you're not pre-approved now, but right. So there are times, unfortunately, where you're going to have to go show a property to a non-pre-approved buyer. I think you lose risking them. You know, just once you can get face to face, it's so much easier to have these conversations. You know, so in your case, Jen, I think you handled it perfect, where we've got the out of, hey, literally, they want me to submit this pre-approval before I can even show it. You know, and now we can hop on the Google Meet if we can, get face to face, get the eye contact, get the expressions going. You know, don't do this over text. You know, if they can't do Google Meet, fine. If you've got to do it over a phone call, but obviously we want to do it in person, then Google Meet, then phone call. And staying on the topic, guys, I think one of the 5 was our listing, right? And so this doesn't stop with working with your buyers. We are still, I mean, in Florida, maybe not so much the case, but in New England, we are still in a seller's market. So there should be an opportunity for us to get a couple of offers. As the listing agent, you've got to talk to that lender on the other side. You know, if it's not somebody that you've done a ton of work with, and even if you have, right? Hey, is this a pre-qual or is this a full pre-approval? Have you pulled their credit? Have you collected all their docs? How long have you been doing this? How many deals have you closed in the last 12 months? Right? How long do you think it's going to take to get this thing closed? Are there any other contingencies that I need to know about before we accept this offer? Has this been through underwriting, or you're the only one that's looked at this so far? Right? These are the extra things. When we've got multiple offers, these are the extent that we should be going for our seller to make sure that the one that we accept is solid. I mean, I used to take it to the extent that if I had multiple offers on a property and the best one is from a lender that, you know, I won't say, but some of these online lenders, I would say, hey, look, Mr. Buyer's agent, really love the offer. Extremely nervous about this pre-approval, right? We really want to go with your buyers. You think you can, it's in multiple, we're competitive. You think you could just have them talk to my lender? They don't have to use my lender. Could you just have them talk to it? If my lender can beat it, great. We'll save your guy a couple of bucks. I just want to know that this deal is solid because we do have a couple other offers and I know those lenders and I know those deals are going to go through. Like that's how far I would take it as a listing agent when I've got multiple offers on the table. If we've got one offer, obviously we can't be this picky. But if we've got a few, you guys know what happens on the listing side. You accept that deal and 3 weeks from now, this thing falls apart because of the loan. You've lost all the momentum. And we're back to square one. We're coming back to market. We don't have all the good juju now. And I think they're going to get less money because you didn't take the 10 to 15 minutes to have that conversation. So this isn't just for the buy side. When you guys are putting deals together, these are the extra things that the pros are doing to make sure that their deals stay together.
And for those of you at Roby, we do have articles in Zendesk that go through questions that you should be asking the lender when you represent the seller.
Who's got questions? Martin.
So this really deals with something else, not with the lending. So been with this customer for about a month and a half. Basically showed 2 properties. This one particular property came back on the market. It was showing it was available. It wasn't. Then went under agreement. And then I guess my buyer just reached out just to verify what I was saying. So the listing agent ended up reaching out to them saying, hey, this property is available. But then she calls me saying, hey, listen, it's available. I called, I verified, I showed. And then like always, I've never been able to get in contact with the selling agent. It's always been through text, never answers a phone call. So I texted him yesterday, hey, listen, my buyers want to put in an offer. Are there any offers? Well, I have one coming through. And mind you, this property's been on the market for a while. I'm like, all right, great, whatever. And then he chooses to say, I have a feeling it's going to be a low ball. He goes, it's going to be a low ball offer, isn't it? I'm like, well, first of all, why would you say that? And at this point, my buyer doesn't want to deal with this agent. I kind of don't want to deal with him just because of the attitude. And every time I've called to ask him for something, he never has anything. No information, nothing. So I looked him up. He has one listing. Their whole unit has like 4 listings total. So like small little mom and pop. But it's like, be professional, I guess. In this situation, do I reach out to somebody else in the office, say, hey, listen, we don't want to deal with this guy. Do you have somebody else I can deal with, or what's going on?
Yeah, I would say, unfortunately, going around this guy, I don't think is going to help your case. If you had somebody that was completely unresponsive, 100%, I think it'd be okay to call an office manager first. Can't get a hold of an office manager, you could try and call the participant in the MLS. That's could be broker of record, to just, because sometimes whatever, you've got somebody that's part-time, you've got somebody that's on vacation, they didn't tell anybody, somebody else was filling in, but it doesn't say that in the MLS. So there are some weird scenarios where you might not be able to get a hold of somebody for a legitimate reason. Unfortunately, I think if you've got some communication here, I think it's just going to make it worse if you go to somebody else. KB, did you have another thought?
Yeah, I think another thought would be, Martin, maybe reach out to your RSL or myself and just let us know who that agent is, because sometimes we have relationships after being in the industry for a while and working locally for a while. We have relationships, right? So if you're having trouble with communication, it might be helpful to have one of us just give a call and say, hey, Bob, I have an agent who's been trying to get on the phone with you. Their client wants to make an offer and he's having a hard time with communication. What's going on, right? And sometimes that helps, because now they're like, oh, so-and-so? Yeah, sure, I'll take your call, which is ridiculous, but it does work sometimes. So that might be for you.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And I appreciate Martin and everybody. I think we do a really good job on this call of not using people's names on the call or brokerage names or any of that. So I do appreciate you not dropping any of that stuff. It's such a great point. It's disgusting that that's how our industry works. That you got unprofessional people like this that are going to respond to one person differently than another person. But that's the reality of the game, at least for now. Hopefully, with these changes that are coming, some of the riffraff will get weeded out, because it is extremely frustrating. But that's a great point. Anybody else have a thought on Martin's situation? I'll say, Martin, I can't tell you how many deals I've done, dozens of deals where I've got an unresponsive agent on the other side, but I got a buyer that really loves the house. And I end up doing both sides of the deal, and it's just how it's going to go. And it's going to be awful, and it's going to be awful the entire transaction, and you just got to know that going in. So if they really love it, you got to figure out a way to get them that house. Lauren.
Yeah, just one final thought I kind of have on this. Sometimes it's so easy when we're dealing with that frustration of that agent that's being non-responsive, or we're getting answers that are sort of short or whatever. Communication just isn't great. Not really sharing all of that with our clients, right? And setting up and talking that about the other side of the transaction to them. And more so dealing with that frustration internally and knowing how to communicate it differently back to our clients, I think, is really important as well, because it just kind of sets up like a bad tone there, in my opinion.
Yeah. So I will say there is a counter to that. And I want to make sure you guys hear both sides of the story there. When it's a lack of responsiveness, right? Just like we talked about on the Jen situation earlier, if Jen were to say, hey, they're not allowing showings unless we're pre-approved, and the buyer gets frustrated and they figure out a way to just call the listing agent, and they call the listing agent and they say, oh, no, I don't know where she got that from, right? I'll show you the property tomorrow, right? That's where you can get into trouble. Once it's documented in the MLS, where there's some, remark section or something that's saying that, now I should feel comfortable, providing that information to them. In Martin's scenario, a lot of times what you're going to find with the unresponsiveness is you're trying to schedule a showing and you can't even get a hold of the person. And now the buyer is getting frustrated, be like, hey, are you a professional? Why can't we get into this house? And the buyer doesn't understand we're at the mercy of that listing agent. So, the technique that I always found worked was just a screenshot of text messages, right, with dates and times of, hey, I've reached out a bunch of times, or if it's emails or whatever the case, to just show lack of responsiveness, right? So we're not going to bash the other agent, but we are going to show that I'm doing my job. I've requested a showing 3 times. Here's a screenshot of the showing time request, or however we're doing the requests, text message, email, showing time, here's my call to the agent. So when you've got unresponsiveness, and it could be for the showing, it could be that we're not hearing back on our offer, and so a lot of times the buyer thinks that now you're not doing your job. And so lack of responsiveness, I think that would be the one time to just show in writing screenshots, hey, I am doing my job. I don't want you to think I'm not reaching out or I'm not responsive. On this topic, does anybody have, hey, here was a scenario, here's how I handled it, or any kind of feedback on dealing with non-responsiveness? Anything else to add to it? Any other strategies or tips or tricks you're using on non-responsiveness? I will say, maybe we can end on this. KB talked about reaching out to leadership when you're having trouble contacting an agent. Another time that you might want to do this is if you're in a multiple offer situation, right? If you're in a multiple offer situation and it happens to be an agent that leadership knows is a heavy producer and might have a relationship with, it could be beneficial for you to reach out and be like, hey, I'm close on this deal. I know it's between us. Is there any way, you might be able to make a call to this listing agent and see if you can get a little bit more out of them? Because a lot of times from a listing agent, you're going to get just, offers are due by tomorrow at 5. Offers are due by tomorrow at 5. And you're not getting any other color. You might be able to get a little bit more color, if leadership were to reach out, just be like, hey, I just talked to my agent, like this buyer is solid. I'd hate to see you miss out on putting a deal to get with this buyer because you've never done a deal with my agent before. So that would be another time where you might want to lean on leadership to make that phone call. And leadership might give you a couple other tips or tricks to maybe strengthen that offer, or, has the lender made a phone call in? How far along in the lending process are we? So they might be able to give you a couple other tips and tricks, but that phone call or that text message that the listing agent may pick up. Again, it stinks that this is how the business works, but it is the reality. So just one more opening for final thoughts. Anybody want to give any more feedback on this? I know we're a little over, but this stuff's important, and great banter today for sure. All right. Go crush your Thursdays, guys. I look forward to finishing the week strong tomorrow with you again. All right. Take care.